What if Revan joined the Jedi Council during the Clone Wars? Let's start today's story at the wellspring of life, where the wills of the Force have gathered. The Clone Wars are raging on, and they can all sense that the dark side is taking over the galaxy. If they do not intervene, then the entire galaxy will be plunged into chaos, which isn't balance. They perform a Force ritual, where they take the spirit of Revan, redeemed and in full control of his life, and have him reborn. Revan was the Jedi Knight who fell to the dark side during the Mandalorian Wars, becoming a Sith Lord alongside Malak. Betrayed and defeated, he was redeemed by the Jedi and reclaimed his place as a champion of the light. In his final years, he sought true mastery over the Force, understanding both its light and dark aspects. At his death, he had achieved clarity, realizing the light side was the true path, not out of duty, but because it brought peace, balance, and freedom from corruption. The Wills knew that Revan was the person who could maintain balance in the galaxy amidst the chaos. The old Jedi returns and travels to Coruscant, where he makes contact with the Jedi Order. The Council were extremely surprised to see him, and some like Windu and Fisto called this a trick. Revan was revered by the Jedi, and everyone knew the tale of the extremely powerful Jedi and Sith. In all of their textbooks, Revan is considered one of the most powerful beings to have ever lived. He explains to the Council that he has been sent to help them win the war, and that he wants the light to be preserved. A long debate begins in the Council, but Yoda argues that they can't pass up on an opportunity like this, and so, the Jedi welcome his knowledge with open arms and grant him a seat on the Council. Revan's presence in the Jedi Council shifts the power dynamic in ways that the Order hasn't prepared for. His past becomes a source of tension among the Council members. Some, like the more conservative Jedi, question the true nature of his redemption, fearing that his knowledge of the Sith could pull him back into dangerous territory. They simply ask why he wouldn't go and help the Separatists. If he has been evil before, then he can be again. Others, however, do recognize the immense value in his experiences. Yoda and Windu, seeing past Revan's history, understand that his insights could be the edge that they need to outwit the Separatists and understand the true nature of the Sith. In meetings, Reva offers new strategies, using tactics like deception and misdirection, lessons learned from his time as both a Jedi and Sith, shaking up the Council's traditional mindset. His strategies challenge their assumptions, pushing them to think beyond what they know, and his presence begins to feel less like a disruption and more like a key to winning a war that had already cost so much. Over time, the Council slowly begin to trust him after he led several Republic victories in the Clone Wars, most notably on Umbara and Ryloth, where it was his unique tactics from back in the Mandalorian Wars that led them to victory. As the war rages on, Revan is thrusted into critical missions alongside Anakin, Obi-Wan, and other Jedi generals, using his unparalleled connection to the Force to anticipate the enemy's every move and throw the Separatists off balance. In the heat of battle, Revan and Anakin form a powerful bond, with Revan guiding Anakin to control his rage and rein in his impulsive tendencies, ultimately sharpening his skills and making him a more disciplined and deadly Jedi. Revan's influence is felt in key victories against the Trade Federation and the liberation of countless systems, where his mastery of the Force ensures success while staying true to the light side's path. His combat style, blending Jedi techniques with subtle, controlled aspects of the dark side, catches the Separatists off guard, forcing them to reconsider their tactics and adding a new dimension to the Republic strategy. Revan's presence not only strengthens the Jedi Order, but also shifts the tide of war, setting the stage for victories previously thought impossible.
Really quick, you know it's no wonder Anakin Skywalker fell to the dark side. The man clearly never slept. Nightmares, stress, late night council meetings, the Jedi Temple probably didn't even have blackout curtains. Honestly, I wouldn't last long in that environment either. And speaking of struggles, that brings me to today's sponsor, Manto Sleep. Now I've tried a lot of sleep masks in my time, and most of them felt like they were designed by the Sith. Too tight, too loose, itchy Velcro, or they just fall off halfway through the night. But the Manto Sleep mask, total game changer. It's fully adjustable, has a premium, weighted feel, and honestly, it's like the Jedi robes of sleep masks. you can actually feel it helping you drift off. I've been using the Manta weighted mask and their extra gentle pressure. It's like a mind trick for your face. My sleep has gone from tossing and turning to peaceful deep rest, like I've been put into carbonite. And with summer on the way, we all know the sun's staying up later, shining brighter, and throwing off our circadian rhythms. Manto Sleep blocks out every trace of light, no matter how long the sun's up, so you can stay balanced in the Force. Whether you need blackout, cooling, or even sound blocking options, Manta's got it, and they're leading the pro-nap movement for a reason. So take back control of your sleep space, head to Manta's website, and use code FANTASY for a discount. Because when you nap like a Jedi, you don't wake up like a Sith. Now back to the video.
Revan quickly becomes fascinated by Anakin, the one everyone has dubbed the Chosen One, the center of so many conversations within the Jedi Order. To someone who had lived thousands of years earlier, Anakin's destiny feels like a puzzle that must be solved, and the more he watches him, the more Revan sees a deep connection between them. They begin training together, and it doesn't take long for them to form a bond, one that goes beyond just mentor and pupil. The Council send them on campaigns together where their skills are put to the test. On the battlefield, they are an unstoppable duo, working together in perfect harmony, and in the quiet moments between the wars, they share conversations that strengthen their bond even further. Revan, with his unique experience and mastery of both the light and dark aspects of the Force, helps Anakin to refine his skills, pushing him to new heights of power. Their teamwork becomes legendary, and it doesn't take long for the Jedi Council to recognize how much Anakin's growth is tied to Revan's influence. However, things change as Anakin begins getting dreams of his wife Padme dying in childbirth. In the original timeline, Anakin keeps these visions to himself, but with Revan and Anakin spending more time together, Revan begins to sense the growing turmoil within Anakin. Anakin would confide in Revan and tell him about the nightmares of Padme dying, to which he asked for guidance. He doesn't know what to do. For some reason, Anakin trusted Revan more than the other Jedi, even though he had known him less, but he knew that Revan would keep this secret to himself. The more Anakin confides in him, the more Revan understands the depths of his conflict, and despite the darkness creeping into his heart, he remains committed to helping him find balance. Believing that Anakin can be saved, but knowing the path ahead is fraught with danger. Their friendship grows stronger with each passing day, but the storm within Anakin only deepens, and Revan knows that the next battle will not just be against the Separatists, but against the darkness that threatens to consume his friend. Revan knew the only way to help Anakin resist the darkness pulling at him was to show him firsthand the consequences of surrendering to it. So he took him to Dromund Kaas, the ancient Sith world where he had once fallen to evil. As they stood amongst the twisted ruins, Revan began to recount his past in greater detail, speaking of his rise as a Jedi Knight, his love for Bastila Shan, and the family they had built together before everything shattered. He told Anakin of the Mandalorian Wars and the lure of power that first seduced him, how he had felt invincible as he gained mastery over the dark side, convinced that his strength could protect the galaxy. But that strength came with a price, the same price that Anakin was beginning to face, the loss of his humanity. Revan's heart grew heavy as he described how his fall to the dark side tore apart his bond with Bastila, leaving him alone in his search for ultimate power, a search that led him to become the very thing he had once sworn to destroy. On Dromund Kaas, they ventured deeper into the dark catacombs where Revan had once fought Vitiate, and as Anakin listened to his tale, he could feel the echoes of Revan's old pain and regret. The air was thick with the weight of the ancient Sith teachings, but Revan guided Anakin through the temples, showing him the horrors that awaited those who gave in to the dark side. They discovered relics that had once been sources of great power, but were now nothing more than twisted reminders of destruction and loss. As Revan shared the painful truth of how he had sacrificed everything, his family, his soul, in the pursuit of power, Anakin's mind was torn between the allure of power and the fear of an inevitable cost. Revan explained that the dark side would give him strength, but it would also take from him everything he held dear, just as it had taken from Revan. With each step, Anakin grew more conflicted, feeling the weight of his words sink deeper into his soul. The journey through the ruins and the history Revan shared instilled in Anakin a sense of dread over the path he was on. But despite this, the temptation of the dark side remained strong, gnawing at him, whispering promises of control and power. By the time they left Roman Cast, Anakin was quieter, his mind swirling with conflicting emotions. The lessons he had learned from Revan had struck a deep chord within him, but the darkness still clung to him, and the fear of losing Padme, of failing to protect her, remained the driving force that threatened to consume him. Despite Revan's attempts to steer him towards the light, Anakin's inner strength had only grown more complex, and as they returned to the Republic, the future of the Chosen Ones seemed ever more uncertain. Returning to the Republic, Anakin was visibly torn. Palpatine believed he had done enough to seduce Anakin to the dark side. He had planted visions of Padme dying, turned him against the Jedi, done everything that should make him turn. But what he hadn't planned for was the arrival of Revan, who would befriend Anakin and make him act true to himself. So, Palpatine reveals his identity to Anakin, exposing himself as the Sith Lord who he had been all along. He played on Anakin's fears, his insecurities, promising him the power to save Padme and bring order to the galaxy, promises that did resonate deeply within Anakin. But Revan's lessons, the painful history of what had become of him when he succumbed to the dark side, lingered in Anakin's thoughts, and for the first time, he was able to recognize the true cost of the power Palpatine offered. Anakin leaves Palpatine's office, and instead of telling Windu, he goes and tells Revan, who is proud of his friend. Together, they confront the Sith Lord, knowing that their final battle will not only determine their fates, but also the future of the galaxy. Anakin and Revan enter the Chancellor's office, who is annoyed to see Revan, and a little worried. He is skeptical if his power would be greater than his own. Revan says that Palpatine is under arrest, that he should come willingly and not make them result in brute force. But Palpatine wasn't just gonna hand himself over. He stands to his feet and ignites his lightsaber. The final confrontation with Palpatine was unlike any battle Anakin had ever faced. The Dark Lord of the Sith was cornered, but his fury only grew as he saw the unity between Revan and Anakin, two of the most powerful Force users to ever exist. Their blades clashed with a vicious intensity, each strike carrying years of experience and pain. Palpatine unleashes torrents of lightning, his voice cackling with malice, but Revan and Anakin anticipated every move, countering with flawless precision. Palpatine fought with all of his might, using every dark side trick he had, attempting to sow doubt between the two, but the bond between Anakin and Revan proved stronger than any manipulation. The force of their combined attacks shattered the Sith Lord's defenses, his once imposing presence faltering with every blow. The room was filled with the sound of crackling energy, the air thick with the weight of history and the destruction of the Sith. In the end, it was Anakin's final strike, guided by Revan's wisdom and his newfound resolve, that brought Palpatine to his knees. The Dark Lord, once so sure of his control over the galaxy, fell to the ground with a final, helpless gasp. As his body lay still, the weight of his reign crumbled, and Anakin, battered and weary, stood tall beside Revan. The galaxy had found peace, and with that peace came a new chapter in Anakin's life, and felt more like a dream than reality. Padme gave birth to their children, and everything was right in the world. Revan became Luke's godfather, while Obi-Wan was Leia's, and Padme and Anakin were very pleased. Anakin is granted the rank of Master after the defeat of Palpatine. He had everything he had ever desired: Padme by his side, a family to call his own, and the guidance of Revan, who never wavered in his support. Together, they made a home on Naboo, a beautiful sanctuary far from the wars and politics that had once consumed their lives. It was here that Anakin, Padme, and their children could find peace, raising their family in the quiet embrace of the natural world, untouched by the turmoil that had defined so much of their past. Obi-Wan was like an uncle to the children, always nearby with a word of advice, a lesson learned, or just a quiet moment of companionship. Ahsoka often joined them in these moments of joy. Holidays were always a grand occasion, with laughter filling the rooms of their home as the families gathered. Padme, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Revan, every one of them woven together by a bond stronger than blood. built through years of struggle and sacrifice. These moments, simple yet profound, became the foundation of their lives, grounding them in the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. Revan's presence was a constant, not only in the larger battles of the galaxy, but also in these quiet moments of reflection and joy. However, he missed Bastilla, and being back permanently meant that he had to be reminded of his loss. He would never love anyone else again, and he hoped that Bastilla was still watching over him fondly. Anakin and Padme's home on Naboo became a symbol of what they had overcome, the dark side, the war, the brokenness, and what they had built in its place. A life full of love, hope, and unity. Once teetering on the brink of destruction, the galaxy now had a chance to heal, and in their small corner of it, Anakin, Padme, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Revan had found the peace they had all longed for, knowing that no matter what the future held, they would face it together as a family. Thank you all for watching today's video. Please check out our saber shop, Fantasy Sabers, where you can get your very own NeoPixel saber for an affordable price and fulfill your childhood dreams of becoming a Jedi or Sith. Also check out our membership platform to be able to watch our videos early, and may the Force be with you.